we have no choice at this point. We have to get a hold of our country or all these other improvements, and some go very unnoticed, but they're the biggest improvements in decades, some ever, are just not going to mean all that much. It goes back to the if you don't have borders, you don't have a country, and it is worse than that. We're in some peculiar times, and it is partly because now with the internet, you can communicate instantly, so the Antifa type groups can plan where they're going to riot, what they're going to do, just like they did with these train derailments last summer. That was their thing. Notice that hasn't happened much lately. So if it was just the tracks alone, you would think it'd be more consistent. But they had planned to do that, stayed out in those woods, and you can plan that in detail with all this instant communication. And of course, they still did this kind of stuff before, but it was more that they went to places like universities and stuff to riot, but now you can be more crafty. And this instant technology, it's good in a way for people to get news, to see what's going on, but just like anything, there's decent people and not so decent people using it. But it goes further than that. You have politicians basically calling on people, on their minions, to attack us if they see us somewhere. And that goes for, I would say, more than half the country, definitely more than half the legal residents here, I know, voted for Trump or support him now. And so basically, this minority's asking for us all to get attacked and to get refused service at best, like what happened with Sarah Sanders, that when she went to that Shack restaurant, and half the country applauded her being thrown out for no reason. I thought the biggest sin was if you have a private business, you have to serve everybody. And if you don't, you're just you should get sued. I mean, can she sue that? It's odd at best. And the fact that the right pretty much doesn't fight it, because see, I really do believe people should have the right to refuse service to anyone for whatever reason in their private place. You know, I mean, and why would somebody want to be there if they don't want them there? That's why she politely left. And that has to go for everyone. That has to go for this cake baking too. We don't feel like baking your strange kind of cake. Deal with it. Stop crying. In the best country in the world, most of those countries, very much more than not, wouldn't even let you live for that lifestyle, much less practice it way out in the open and hold the rest of us hostage for it. Just stop all that. You choose a lifestyle, then you demonize society for not changing for you. I've just had it with that group. They're such a tiny minority, but keep hearing on and on about them. But anyway, that goes for anyone. And like this florist that I guess that the court refused the LGD whatever case about hearing it because he didn't want to cater either. It's always happens to be they find these people that they know just would rather not and ruin their lives basically. And why does it have to be a court case when the right does it, but when the left does it, it's okay? Just like when the left kicked a Trump supporter out of a bar in New York City for wearing a hat, and that was crickets. But if anyone does it the other way around, I mean, look at, and in Starbucks, when those two guys refused to leave for not buying anything, then they refused to get arrested, and then it created a whole month-long misinformation campaign, basically. And it's so inconsistent. You're supposed to just let people sit inside somewhere all day long and not tell him anything, but yet you can throw her out right away for not doing anything. She intended to get something. It's just weird, but we have to do that. Refuse the right to reserve the right to refuse service to anyone, and stop with this protected class stuff. If you're a citizen here, then you're equal under the Constitution, regardless of what anyone thinks, and I think that's a good thing. There's stuff that I think and stuff that I can say here in this channel. That's why it's good that it's my channel, because as I said, I double down on it, seeing that I guess someone enjoys listening to it and flagging just like they do, I'm sure, a whole lot of other channels, obviously, that it happens all the time. But you already are. We went through all this equality stuff. It doesn't mean equal outcome. You're equal under the Constitution, but I mean, it has to be, everyone has to abide by these same laws, or these same rules that the left makes, I should say. So if the left makes the rule that you can throw someone out, then so can we. They make the rule that you can't throw anyone out, even if they're just sitting in there, then we should have that too. This double standard, and what results after the double standard is even worse, as I say, when politicians call on people to just randomly attack us. That's a threat. They should be removed from that. I mean, look, when the guy from Montana who won, when he got fed up after a long time of the news reporters hounding him, and he body slammed one of them, that was just the worst thing that happened. But then they can call on people to do that to us, basically. And I don't know, but it's gotten to that. And see, if we don't do this martial law, it's just going to be one side escalating, because the other side has resilience for various reasons. One of the reasons is because we don't want to see a whole bunch of fighting here in America. See, one side doesn't like the country. They can't. They don't. By now, everyone has to realize that this isn't the party of John F. Kennedy anymore. And really, unless somebody just has been under a rock, or maybe if they're about 95 years old with no technology, you just have to see that it isn't, that it's changed, that the values have changed, that John F. Kennedy was probably more conservative than Trump. Not with delivering, but I mean, as a person, and that's what makes Trump even more amazing. He's doing it for us, even on some of the issues that I'm sure he's more neutral about. He's doing it because he knows that it's right, and everyone's got to see that. So basically, half of the country just is either indifferent or has a negative view of America. See, they think they don't deserve to be here, so they think that the rest of us don't either, and they take it out on the rest of us. So, since they hate it, they could care less what happens to it. They could care less what's destroyed. In fact, the more that's destroyed, the better. And that's what they want. That's why they don't mind all this unrest. The more unrest, the better. And it's mostly the millennials that go out and carry this stuff out, because as I said, the other ones, they benefited in the 80s when we had the same type of leadership in basically for the whole decade. And that's a good amount of time for a time period in America to have that, to be that prosperous that you can't help get on it. And then a lot happens in 10 years. You get older and other things happen in your life where you just can't go out and set stuff on fire anymore. But now that these millennials can, I've still not seen any of these older ones saying anything to them, stopping them, making them not. And so you have that over there, basically at war. And then on the right, you see that you don't want stuff destroyed. You don't want monuments down. You don't want history erased. You don't want names of streets changed. Every time you change a name of a street, all it does is put blood in the water. And they want more and more and more and more. They see it as a weakness because they could care less about the street name either. Nobody feels any better once it gets changed. Nobody feels any better after you change the name of a national park, after you cancel a Civil War reenactment at a park because it offended somebody. They're no less offended. They're just bitter and angry, and that's how it's going to be. They don't feel better when you change the name of a lake, when you remove old movies from a list of stuff that kids can watch. That's just insane. Why can they listen to all this rap music, but they can't watch Little House on the Prairie? It's just erasing anything American, anything that had to do with building, with founding, with anything of America, and brainwashing people into thinking what wasn't. It's this whole denial of reality, this whole pretending something is that isn't, and holding you at gunpoint to do it. And so that's where a lot of this conflict is. It's not that the right, if the left wants a fight, the right's to side with the guns. It's not that we can't just go out and destroy them. It's that we don't want to see this country destroyed. And when we have the strongest leadership in a generation, we don't want to focus on all this stuff. We want him to keep on as he's been doing, living up to his highest potential and then some, exceeding expectations. Even with this, the immigration issue and the whole the discrimination of the press secretary and the way he fires back, it is reassuring. Even in these kind of precarious times, it's reassuring to see that such a strong leader is at the helm, and he is. And now I think that you have to put more of that into action here. Have lockdown, have martial law, and the police are on his side. All the military's on his side. Anyone basically in law enforcement, they all love him, and it's mutual. And up until now, all the military, the veterans and such, they know, they remember how the other side treats them versus this. So if there's going to be a side, we know which side that they're going to be on. All they have to do is go out and make sure that there's order, because that's what we need really in this country is order. We need them out. So if these ones want to start destroying and setting things on fire and attacking people, they need guards to stop them right away. And that needs to go on for as long as it needs to go on, so that Trump can concentrate on the other stuff that he's doing. And there just needs to be more law enforcement to protect the laws, since it's not working as it is now. And the more the better. Things are never bad because there's too many cops and too many law enforcement officers. It's because there's too few. And so that just, it's a shame that it got this way, but you don't want it to get worse. And at the same time, you try not to be too, I guess, paranoid or extreme. I mean, basically all my life I've heard that there's going to be a second civil war here in the United States, and so it's easy to say that it seems closer and closer to it, but at the same time, realistically, you want to prevent it. You never want one, but why would you want one now with all this prosperity? Why would somebody want to worry about that? Each day you hear random people talk about how much better things have gotten, about how they're already benefiting from the tax cuts, and that was just recent, and they had been benefiting from them already. And they talk about the raises they've got, they talk about how it's nice to be able to say stuff again, not be so politically correct, and it's nice to be able to relax a bit again. It's nice, some people say it's nice that they're able to pray in public again, so because there's freedom of religion, not from it. And there's a lot of these good, improvements and bringing it back to normal. So most don't want a whole lot of bloodshed, but that is what the other most do want, and that's what the other most are willing to do. And a lot of the time, I mean, like I say, his hands are tied, not only because there's a million issues, various degrees of importance, but all are important. But he has people working against him that are near him. He has very little help. And, I mean, never mind the fact that he has no encouragement. That's why it's good that he does these rallies now, because at least he sees that he still has so much support just from the people. Because otherwise, I mean, that just must be a real drag to day after day do the most thankless stuff for free. And I mean, what probably sometimes seems like it's not getting that far. It must seem that way. I mean, the immigration thing it's basically at the same place as it was a couple years ago. And well, the good thing is there's been some deportations and people are more aware of the law, and there have been less people coming, so it's not really the same. But I mean, this whole it's endless. We can't just get on with it, follow laws and move on. And actually, before I had heard that martial law may have been declared when the wall was being built, and apparently the wall started being built, but I don't even think the liberals know about that, because they're just too busy being angry about everything. There's just so much to be angry about that's just, believe it or not, an issue in the backburn, and that just shows how angry you must be if you don't even realize that the wall started being built. That used to be the worst thing in the world, but now other things took precedence. And most people don't want this country just to fall apart like that and to get destroyed. But a lot, as I said, even politicians, even ones by Trump's side, actually do. Some are turncoats, some are just out in the open, and it's a shame of all these people in this country that he's got so many never Trump people by him and working against him constantly. And it's amazing he gets as much done as he does, considering that he's gotten so much and he does so much, and he keeps this resolve, never falters. And that's definitely what we need up at the helm. And he needs help, just like these bikers always say that if he ever needs help, just to basically let them know and they'll be there. And I mean, I think that's what it needs more of that. We need that kind of stuff all throughout the country, because it's not fair that basically half the country's it's open season on us, where we can get attacked just because. And I mean, only half the country has all these constitutional rights that they supposedly hate, but they only use them on themselves. But we can't assemble, we can't congregate, we can't wear certain things, we can't advertise our politicians, we can't have the hats. I mean, see, the side that actually respects the Constitution can't even do it without getting attacked. That's a problem. And that's one reason among many that I think that we do need this. So I would not be opposed whatsoever to have martial law in this country, to have them clean it up a bit and let these kids grow up. And it's a little different now, because even in the 80s, it wasn't so much of this handing out all this welfare. I'm sure they did, but not to this extent that even during this next decade, it's just something that would take a generation to backtrack on if they started now. And So these millennials, you know, who knows? It's a little different that they're just so sort of far gone and angry that they don't even realize that they can benefit from this economy and from how the country is now. Whereas back in when the other ones rioted, they kind of had no choice but to stop. They had no choice but to jump on that prosperity bandwagon that Reagan made, and it took a few years to get that. It took a few months this time around to get it because everything happens faster. Everything has to happen faster now than what it did then. And so really, that's just, it's a shame, but that's what I see coming. And I think one other reason that they're doing this is because they're trying to show Trump supporters, like, how dare you get that strong leader, and how dare you just not accept what was, and the status quo and the globalism, which was headed towards communism, really this collectivism stuff. Most people aren't that way. Most people, it upsets most people when you're forced into some kind of pool, some collective stuff, and have all these rules, and most people reject that. And they're trying to show us, well, if you reject that, then you're not going to be safe, and we're going to stop this recovery, and it's going to be hard times and such in America. And so, I mean, the only thing to do about that is kind of to have the attitude to tell them, so what, you know, whatever they put on, it's not going to like threaten us into giving up this support and being okay with the status quo again, and like trying to draft Jeb Bush or something like that. See, that's what's behind it for a lot of these politicians. It didn't work to constantly attack Trump for a year and a half, so now it's just straight to the supporters, which they always did anyway. Some did, and some kind of like indirectly did, but now they're just flat out doing it. The gloves came off. Nothing else has worked. They've tried everything. They did the Russia thing. They tried the thing about being mentally ill, just like what they did with Reagan, when these two are the ones that are like working around the clock more than any others. And they've tried a whole bunch of things, didn't work, so now they're doing this. It's just another thing to try, and we can't have this work either. And that's the best thing. I mean, not to show any kind of, not to be intimidated at all by any of these freaks. They're just, it's pretty wild. And it's another reason that now that it's almost 2 years into this, and time as fast as it goes, it's not so far off to say that it's 2 years in. And I hope that some news that I had heard is not true, and that is that Trump has planned to only be in there for 4 years and get all of this stuff done, and then just like not have any more to do, so write off and hand it over. But see, we can't have that now, because I mean, if he gets everything done within the 4 years, we still need that strong leadership longer. Look at what happened the last time when it left. You can't just leave prematurely. I wouldn't want that. It's not a good time. It wouldn't be good for the country. And well, true, he does more in 1 year than most do in 4 or in 8, but that doesn't mean to cut the time short. I'd rather him do less and be in there for the whole time. So if it means that he'd only stay in if he doesn't finish all this, then I hope he slows down the roll, because we need that kind of leadership for as long as possible. I always say that I wish Trump could serve for life. And I mean, people get all upset because they want to repeal the Second Amendment. They say, what about the 25th? But this kind of leadership, you definitely want it in there as long as possible. So I hope that isn't true. I heard it on a YouTube news channel show with, well, one that Roger Stone is on, and some other I guess, people that talk to him and know him, but it's early yet. I hope that if things kind of stay this bad in the social aspect, that if he is at all considering that, I hope he reconsiders anyway, regardless of what it is, because we're going to need that. Even if things get real turned around, we're going to need that to make sure that it stays, and to make sure that it stays long enough that people get used to it, not that they can just change it right back. Because like I say right now, even another Republican, they just can't. He's one of a kind, and you have one of a kind, you just want to have it as long as possible. And I can understand why. I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know how he does it at the same time, how he can withstand all this, but he can, and he has all the people behind him. And as I say, not every channel doesn't always get everything right, and so it's early yet. So hopefully that's just not one thing that's going to happen. I hope he comes out soon, because he's announced already that all this stuff's re-election campaign and such. So I just hope he comes out soon to reassure us that he's going to stay in, and not just no matter what gets done, because he knows, of course, all this stuff's going to be basically ahead of schedule. And so you can do a whole lot during the 8 years ahead of schedule. Do as much as what most do in 20 years, if they even. So if there was any kind of truth to that, I didn't think that was good news, especially at this time. But we'll have to see, I suppose. Though for right now, it's you want to kind of, you do want to try to stay optimistic and enjoy this. But I mean, when you see all this stuff piling on, the reality is that it's different. It's different than it was before. I think a lot of people see that, and a lot of people are feeling that, and it's not too good. And while no one can see exactly what's going to happen, I just think that the martial law can help get this country back in order, because we need to have that kind of order so that we can benefit from all this prosperity better. And so we'll see in the coming weeks, and I'll link to this this article. Well, it's that everyone knows already, that where he said that you just send these migrants back to where they came from without the jury, without any trials or anything, which makes sense, because why would you? They're not citizens here in the U.S. to have all that. And you see them right coming from the border, so until you have the wall, then that's what you do. So, but news changes fast, so we'll see what happens with all this within the next few days, I suppose.